Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Give it just one more minute before I officially kick off, and then we'll go ahead and get started today. Okay, we're going to go ahead and kick things off. My name is Beth Reichert. I am the director here with Higher Level of our HR and People Management partnerships. And I'm thrilled that you're joining and listening to me today. This is something that I get really excited about because in my career here with Higher Level over the years, I've made a lot of friends in the banking, credit union, financial institution industries. And I've been able to really work with them strategically and get to understand the dynamics that work within small banks, large banks. And when I say large, they're not big, but on the larger scale from what we're used to. But I've been able to work with them pretty closely over the years to get to understand the nuances that come into play for just the compliance regulations and the fears and worries that keep those HR and a lot of times for the smaller banks, those vice presidents and different hats and roles that these individuals wear at these banks and financial institutions, and really to listen to what keeps them up at night, to understand what is needed in order to really run the business when it comes to your people management strategies. And of course, a lot of what we talk about is payroll and HR, but there's more than just the label of payroll and HR when it comes to this industry. So we're going to dive on in, talk a little bit about what you should be looking for, what you should see. I know a lot of people may have streamlined some things, but maybe have spreadsheets or calendars or things in play. Works, but doesn't work. And how can you use today's technology and today's strategy to build a better retention game plan, as well as make your employees feel engaged and excited about having control over their information, feeling in the loop, and just having more access to it overall. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this little slide deck here. So some key points that I'm going to be talking about, and that again, that I've really worked with our partners over the years in this space, has been eliminating time-consuming tasks, simplifying taxation, general ledgers, managing employee data, salary, and benefits in one system. Now, this also, my key point in this, and again, I mentioned retention, is really going to be the user experience in this as well. So everything from recruitment to retirement, those little bitty tidbits that are coming into play here. And that can be attracting top talent, maintaining that, adding in pay raises. That's a big thing that I hear a lot in this world is, we implement different raises and things like that. FMLA and leave management, COBRA management, all of those different compliance nuances that eventually lead to all of these things. So when you're, whether you're a current partner of ours and maybe you're using us and partnering with us in some aspects here, or maybe you don't necessarily work with us hand in hand when it comes to your human capital management or HCM strategies or software. Here's what you need to be looking for, and here's really what to evaluate here. Cloud-based efficiency, of course, right? AI is the buzzword. It will be the buzzword for a while. AI is going to help streamline these tasks, but we're not going to take the human out of it, right? And that's very important to us here at Higher Levels. We know how important it is to have that customer service and human interaction, and that could be in our relationship, but then also from the client to the employee, right? You don't want to be bothered with, hey, how much paid time off do I have? Or, hey, when do I need to do X, Y, Z? What does an FSA mean and should I enroll? You don't need to be able to be bogged down with those sort of things, but that's where you need to lean into this software. So looking for something that's payroll, time tracking, onboarding, ACA compliance, also a learning management system. I know many people are using these different products and maybe are using this, have a contract here and a contract here and a contract there. Finding a solution that can house all of that and can be very modular in that space is so important. And take it from me, I've been in this industry for a long time. I've worked and I've seen a lot of things, and piecing it out like that is not a great experience for the user. Fiscally, it's not really the best decision to do. And then also just from a time consuming standpoint, of course, you want to try to just get it all together so where it's a single data entry point. So benefits to doing all of this, again, as I just mentioned, no importing, exporting this here. I've got to send this to my account manager. I've got to do this. We're eliminating all of these tasks today. So when I talk case study here, again, I mentioned that I've worked with a lot of individuals in this world. And I think one thing that I really want to be sure and bring up is that the buzz, like what are the hot ticket items? What are really these concerns, and what are we looking to do? So most financial institutions, and feel free to jump in on the chat at any point in time if you want to add to this, but here's like the top, I would say 8 to 10 items that really I hear people just be exhausted with. So recruiting and retaining top talent, maintaining compliance, managing challenges with benefits enrollment. Raise your hand if you're about to go through that. I know it's that tough time of year for many, many people. Inadequate HCM technology, having a learning management system here, having an onboarding and applicant tracking system here, my payrolls here. I've got my accounting software here, nightmare. Increasing employee expectations. This is an employee's labor market, and everybody has to really be prepared for that. And more employees are driving the decisions of businesses to become more streamlined in this, right? Offering competitive benefit packages, like I just said, employees' labor market. So many employees don't understand the value of the benefits that are being brought to them by an employer, whether that be how much employers pay for health insurance, a lot of money, right? All of these different benefits from life insurance, disability plans. If your employer is paying for that, then that's every bit a part of your compensation package. And then also just things like the leave policies. Is that super clear and transparent to where they can get excited about their leave management? If you're tracking it on a spreadsheet or on a piece of paper, that just doesn't sit well. It's not as transparent. Rising healthcare costs, big time concerns. Of course, that's been a really big thing since COVID, post 2020. It's costing employers more and more money to be able to sponsor those plans, and they're having to increase how much they're paying on behalf of an employee. So that's why retention is so important. And that's also why the education of your employees and their pre-tax benefit is just as important as this. Improving the employee experience and keeping up with competitors. I know I've worked one financial institution I work with now presently that comes to mind is one that was pretty set in their ways. I dare say old school. And when they came on board with us as a partner, it was like, let's get things situated for payroll. And over the course of the last 5 years or so, each year we're progressively taking a chunk off of that, right? And getting all of that to be more streamlined and to make those people management strategy flawless. And it does take time. So when I'm going through some of these things, this doesn't have to happen overnight. Sometimes it starts with your wish list, right? And saying, here's what bogs me down and here's what I'd like to get to. So keep that in mind. Okay. So what we're going to be talking about today, specifically what features we're going to be looking at, a couple of them, onboarding, and this says multi-EIN, and that does come into play sometimes with financial institutions, but a lot of times it's multi-branch company reporting. If you've got, even as low as 4 or 5 branches, that's still having to go back and forth to different places if you are wearing that HR hat. If you've got to get new W-4s, if you've got to get an employee onboarded at that branch and you're not using electronic onboarding, there's a lot that comes into that, and making sure the branch managers are able to help you manage some of that process. So unlimited department levels, scaling access so people can have certain access to things. They don't have to see pay just because they have access to the system, but they need to be able to look at their team calendar to be able to manage staffing levels and things like that. So again, general ledger and some other HR pieces, as well as automated ACA tracking. Ugh. Everybody get the chills when I said that out loud. And then one database for employee records, open enrollment, carrier feeds. What is a carrier feed? So carrier feed is when the data from your payroll system goes directly, of course, to the carrier. So that could be for a 401k, that could be for some ancillary plans like Guardian or Aflac, or of course, those big medical plans like your Blue Cross Blue Shields or United. So that could definitely save a lot of time when it comes to compliance. If you have a paper enrollment package happening right now, you are at risk of data entry errors. You're at risk of missing that enrollment from being set up, which of course is not good from a retention standpoint. Things like life events, when they have a baby or when they get married, or these big things that happen for these employees, they need to have that access to where they can make sure that that coverage is taken care of. So I'm going to give a little special shout out. I'm pictured here with my friends at First Southern Bank. They are a longtime client and partner of ours in this industry, so they are fabulous to work with, and I'm lucky to have had many conversations with them over the years. All right, just wrapping this up then. So more time to focus on your bank needs, less worry about legal compliance, and just backtracking to more time to focus on bank needs. If you're in an executive vice president role, or in a role where you're not just solely focused on HR and payroll, it is competitive as all get out in the banking world right now, right? It's people, you're worried about meeting those your actual clients' needs and keeping up with the increased competition. As a kind of an operational nerd myself, I like to look at some of these dynamics in these organizations that we support, and it is a very competitive market for you financial institutions. So if you're spending less time on answering these employee questions and less time having to track things down from branch to branch, and that also helps support in the overall growth of the organization there, because it is hard. It is definitely, I feel like a bank at every corner here in Southern Illinois. So less worry about legal compliance, auditors coming in. If you know the paperwork's there, if you have a flawless process, then you're not losing sleep at night over that. Higher employee engagement, again, retention. It is so costly to turn over employees, and it is their world right now. And if you've got to make it fun, you've got to make it exciting. And you've just got to be able to engage your team. Viewing labor data in real time, reducing errors, and improving efficiencies. So here's kind of the life cycle that we talk about for just partners in general. Not every shoe fits here, right? And I think that's what's exciting and what you really should be looking for when it comes to an HR people management software or HCM software, whatever you want to call it. You should be able to evaluate these different things and say, okay, yeah, what could that do to me? I met with a client recently, and we were just talking about ways to use the system, and they were growing, and there's just little things that fit in here that you might not think, oh, there's a better way to do it, just because you've done it that way for so long. So if it's not in your HR and payroll system, take a look at it and see if it's something that could fall here. So when it comes to this industry specifically, some things that come to mind are certification tracking, different salary and job history. Do you have a seamless and easy process to do that? FMLA management. I know a lot of financial organizations worry about COBRA administration from a compliance standpoint, what paperwork is being collected, background checks, all of that good stuff. All right, just keep this in mind. If you're not a current partner of ours, we are doing a 6 months of free payroll and timekeeping. That is a big cost savings for those clients that are wanting to sign up. So after you see this solution today, if you're interested in hearing more and you think 6 month free sounds nice, please be sure and reach out to me. If you are a current partner of ours, we are running promotions on additional products that we service and offer. So I would be more than happy to talk to you about that. So that's exciting. Higher Level has celebrated 30 years in business this year, and this is the biggest promotion we've ever done. I've been here for 10 years, and I can tell you I'm not seeing anything close to this. So come celebrate with us and learn what it's like. All right, so before we jump into questions here, let's go ahead and kick off and get into the software. So I always like to show and talk about onboarding as an opening piece to this. So, and the reason why I like to do that is because a lot of engagement starts with your employee onboarding process. So here on my screen over on the right, I've got just a test employee pulled up, and this is actually the onboarding process that we do for Higher Level internally. So we know that day one, we don't want to have team members sitting there filling out stacks of paperwork. We want this to be done ahead of time. So one of our recruiters, our in-house HR person, she'll send out the link to complete all of this before they start with us. That's the trick. You want them to go through it at home, get excited about it, not worry about spending an entire day going through orientation and onboarding. By doing this, we've cut back our onboarding and orientation time dramatically. And most clients would attest to the same thing. But the benefit of electronic onboarding far surpasses that employee being able to do this before day one. This is also the employee is that source of data entry. Okay. So now this all is just going to flow through automatically if you use the applicant tracking system. Or you can just quickly insert this by saying first name, last name, email. It sends them a link. They can do this all from their phone. So I can attach different forms in here that's going to require acknowledgement, or it can be fillable. So something like this direct deposit form, I'm going to want them to type in that and sign in and fill that out. And again, back to what your auditors want. I know I have some partners where they need all of these these forms typed in. And so that's why they get transferred into a fillable form as opposed to just an acknowledgement. Those auditors have requested that. So we have several different documents that we collect here that we have them sign off on. And then down off at the bottom, this is just stuff that actually requires acknowledgement. Nothing to fill out. We just want them to read it so they can see. We also include links here. So the higher level website, I also typically encourage if you have a message from the CEO, if your bank has a commercial, if there's anything that talks about your mission statement as an organization, include that in the onboarding process because it makes it resonate a little bit more. And so it's not so transactional. So when I hit continue here, this is a very much a wizard driven format. They'll be able to just click through this. They can't submit this unless the things that you say are required are completed. So I'm just going to hop around a little bit. Of course, time down on me. Just tells you that I was talking too much. Let's get logged back in. Okay, back on this continue. So over on the left, here are the things that I've said that I wanted to collect in my onboarding. There are several additional options that you could add to this. Some things like WOTC certifications, different training. If you want to request to collect that in that point, you absolutely can. Here I just kind of had the bare bone basics. So employees can add profile pictures. Again, it gets them excited and engaged. When they start filling out about you, that's where they're putting their emergency contact. What's nice about housing emergency contacts in this system is that managers, supervisors can see that from their phone or their app if you allow that, or you as the admin can see that as well from home. So if something's happening and you need to get a hold of someone's emergency contact, you don't have to go flip through a spreadsheet. You don't have to log on a computer. You are able to see this all from home. By putting in the different contacts like your beneficiaries and dependents, that also flows through to your benefits. So if I'm putting my husband and my children in there, then I'll be able to then enroll them in their benefit coverage here later on. When it comes to my paycheck, this is my direct deposit. They can fill this stuff out. And then when it comes to taxes, this is probably my favorite part because I've lived in the payroll world for a very long time. I can't tell you how many calls I get in January or our team gets in January of upset employees because they did not have enough tax withheld because there is no education on how to fill out a W-4. So many employees just don't know how to do that. They don't know what they're filling out and they get so confused. And so they come to you and they ask for feedback. How should I fill this out? And you're like, I can't give you advice on that, right? And so they make these estimates on this very intimidating federal form. They put this on there and then they don't withhold enough and they owe a bunch of money and it's your fault, right? They're screaming and shouting. And so then our partners will come to us and say, hey, the system didn't withhold enough, when in reality it did. It's just the way they fill it out. That piece of paper is so intimidating. So what I really like about this onboarding wizard and doing this electronically is it breaks it down so it kind of keeps the mistakes out of the W-4s. So instead of, if you're familiar with the form, putting $4,000 for dependents, it just asks you, how many dependents do you have? And if you put 2, it does the math and translates that to 4,000 for you. So it's a very intuitive process and it's very simple in the way that it goes. I'm not going to go through it for sake of time. It keeps you from filling that form out. And then it's nice about it, they're going to sign off on it. And they're going to put in the last 4 of their social and it actually shows them the completed W-4 before they hit approve. And then it stores to their profile electronically and it goes into the payroll system. So you don't have to worry about accidentally putting that in either. So near and dear to my heart, that old W-4, because there's such a room for error from the employee, from the client, and even sending it to us. It just becomes a nightmare. Form I-9. So we will be looking at this pretty extensively here and on the admin side. So every employer should be collecting an I-9 with their onboarding process. In some states, you're even required to do E-Verify. So if you have not done that yet, if you're not doing E-Verify and you're not sure if your state requires it, feel free to ask me, reach out to me. We have some guidance and correspondence on that. If you're in Alabama, there's certain states, again, Tennessee, if you have over, I think, 20 employees, these different states require E-Verify to be completed with that Form I-9. But everybody should be doing Form I-9, and there's a lot of heat and conversation around this type of thing, but you must make sure that your employees are eligible to work in the United States, right? This is a non-negotiable here, especially when it comes to your compliance and those auditors coming in. So the employee is going to fill out their information. They're going to attach their 2 forms of ID that the I-9 requires through their electronic onboarding process. And so then it will also, they'll sign off on it with the last 4 of their social. It creates, and then it saves into their profile. Then there's an I-9 audit tool on the admin side of the system that's going to allow you to make sure that they've all been completed and to see who's still outstanding. So you'll be able to complete the employer portion electronically as well. And then if you need E-Verify, it would send it off electronically to the E-Verify site. EEO and vets. So if you are required to do your EEO reporting, you can collect that information in the onboarding process. Very, very easy to do, just like this. They'll click through. There's our vets information. And then, of course, the disability. So they'll be able to fill that out, and then you'll be able to run your EEO report pretty seamlessly if you're using this electronically. Don't fill those EEO reports out manually. Please save yourself the headache. That data point should be in the payroll system. All right, so here's just some additional information that we do for fun. So this is tied to a miscellaneous field, and I'm going to talk about miscellaneous fields from an administration perspective on people management for you all as banks. So this is kind of like an open slate for us to use and get creative with certain things that you want to collect. Now, I tend to say, again, I'm the bubbly one, I'm the fluffy one of the family. And so I'm like, yeah, you're going to do you have shirts that you hand out? Well, then get your shirt size. And so we call it higher level swag here. What's your shirt size? So they can come in here and select that for, and you can see it's a drop down. Here's my guest. If I had guest shirt size, if I wanted to collect that, I could. But even for celebration treats, so this is a fillable field, we celebrate every chance we get at IR level. We like a good celebration. So I want to know, do you like breakfast pizza or brownies or cupcakes? What is it that you love to celebrate with? Because we're going to celebrate with you every chance we can. So we collect those sort of things. But also we can use the miscellaneous field to collect driver's license or different things. One thing that I tend to use, and I will go into this visually here shortly for miscellaneous fields, is fraud prevention leave management. So if you, as you should, you're supposed to really have a policy in your handbook where you have people on your team taking 5 consecutive days off, 5 to 10. And while it's not required, auditors like to see that in your policies and handbooks. So I know a lot of institutions have a hard time tracking that. You can use your miscellaneous fields to put that information in. Additionally, you can use certifications, and I will show the certifications here. Now, that wouldn't be anything you'd collect in the onboarding process, but that's just to get your kind of ideas flowing on what you could use as a miscellaneous field. And of course, you can name it anything you need to there. Supporting documents. So here over on the right, and really on most of these screens, we can add messages in here that's going to help tell them exactly what they need to do. So for direct deposits, we always encourage that a voided check be put in there and that you verify it. The last thing we want to happen is a delayed pay, delayed direct deposit. Nobody wants that. So always confirm, but we're going to ask them to upload that information in here as well. So, or if you want to put in, your 2 forms of ID, if you want to collect anything else at all, driver's license, insurance card, if they're going to be out driving, all of those different things, you absolutely can. So then that's it. They're really in the onboarding process. Again, they can do it from their phone. There's several other screens and data points you could collect in here. This is a very basic template, but that's the nice thing about our solution is that it's very scalable, and it's not everybody gets the same thing. No, you get to say, and you get to tailor, and you get to make it your own. All right, so I'm going to hop over to the employee perspective still, because user experience is so important for you all, that I'm going to just hop in and show you, all right, I'm onboarded and I'm officially an employee, and here I'm a new teller at a branch. So, or maybe I'm a branch manager, right? And so I can manage and supervise individuals. So here is my look at my employee experience. Now, again, you can download the app. If you don't have the app on your phone and you already partnered with us, it's called isolved People Cloud. I encourage you to download it. I encourage you to tell your employees to download it because it's fabulous, and they continue to make enhancements in the isolved solution on that particular product. So here on my landing screen, I can see if I had a punch out, punch in, I can see anything relative to this here. I can see time off that I've got coming up, and I can quickly request time off from this screen. My to-dos, so that's all built into those modular pieces that you decide to use. So if you have the scheduler functionality and you have an employee that needs to swap shifts, if they can't come in, you'll be able to get notified here through push notifications or emails, or just log in and see your to-dos. My time off requests are sitting in here, and it tells me I need to do this. It tells me that I was, oh man, that one's 11 months old. In this demo account, I've got a course assigned that I know is sitting there, and I need to go complete that mandatory training. And then again, I can see more time off requests down there and see my recently visited place. So let's say I'm an employee and I need to clock in and out. I'm just going to quickly come up here and hit this clock radial and hit quick punch, and I'm punching in, and that is it. I'm done. I'm clocked in for the day. That is how easy that timekeeping solution is for an employee. You can restrict that to certain IP addresses. You can put a geofence on that to where they have to be at this specific branch. You can let them clock in and out from the phone. I know there's a lot of trust issues when it comes to timekeeping. So there's a lot of different ways to navigate this. I'm just showing one of how easy it is to do this from a computer. All right. So, but I'm also a manager in here. And as the manager, I want to come and see, or even me, I just want to come and look specifically at time off balances, because so many of you aren't streamlining that process. So when I come in here to manage, I'm going to come into my calendar, and here I can see where I've got I can filter this out to see my holidays, any pending absences, what's happening. I can look at it by the week. I can see who's got what going on. I've got 2 on PTO this week. I can even look at it by the day. So if I'm looking at my branch specifically and I want to see who's in there, or if you want to toggle to different departments, you can. But I'm just looking at my week, and I can see who's got what time off. The month, it's a little bit harder to see. You can hover over those days or click on those days, and it's going to show you, okay, on the 24th, I've got an absence, and here it will tell you that absence. And then I've also got one pending. So it just depends on how you like to look at it. But this essentially is going to give you that calendar. So when I clicked on that day, and now I'm on a completely different week. Now I can see who's scheduled for what and who has pending requests on those days to make better determinations for who could be approved and who's off. And what's nice about that is that you can do team calendars. You can do blackout restrictions. If you need to block out a certain amount of days on who can be off, you absolutely can do that. So here at the top, I can click across these, or I can just come over here and I can click on my manage and go through my time cards that way. My tasks, that's going to be where I have my time off request or missing punches to do. So a missing punch, if your employee forgets to clock in and out, you can come in here and you can address those. So if they need to submit those missing punches and you need to correct those, you absolutely can do that from this screen, and it will show you all the different ones that are also there. Okay. When it comes to display, there's different items you can preview there, but we're going to leave that as is. And then you can come in and see the scheduled hours versus actual hours and see any kind of variance. And that is if you're using a scheduler functionality. So I want to come in and request time off. I'm the employee. I can come right in here to time and attendance and then time off. I can see my available balances across my different plans. If I have different availability, if I scroll down, you can see the holidays for the bank or credit union here in the system. Now, I know some of you, just depending on what day those holidays fall, you may take a half day on certain days. You may be working. I know it all just depends, especially with holidays that fall on the weekend. So it's nice to build the holiday calendar out so your employees can see it and they can plan accordingly. I can see any upcoming time off, and then I can also see my pending request in here. If I want to request time off, I'm just going to hit this plus time off, and here I can select those different options. So for leave management, because I know FMLA is a big topic, there's actually a different system for this that isolved has built in. I know some of our clients still track FMLA leave through this traditional time off, and you absolutely can, but there is a more enhanced leave management tool that I'll briefly show here just shortly. So it is intuitive, that isolved, it's so smart. So you can just put in your date, you can put in your hours, and then again, we could block out restrictions to where it's half days, full days, all that good stuff. Hopping around a little bit to pay and tax, I can get, of course, my direct deposit information updated from here, so I don't have to go to my HR person to update my direct deposit. You can enable employees to do that. You can also enable them to do tax updates in January when they owe money. They can come in here and update the tax forms as they need to. They can download multiple pay stubs. You can select several in that process. So if they are going through a some sort of credit approval process and they need to download those stubs, they'll be able to do so from their phone, as well as get their W-2 or their 1095 for ACA reporting. For personal, you can come in here and update your personal information, your emergency contacts. Additionally, you can come in here and scan documents in here. You can upload things to the system. So if you need to, you absolutely can. We can also give them visibility to documents that are within their profile, or we could block that. Expenses. Now, this isn't a hugely used product, but for some in the sales roles within a financial organization, sometimes in those sales roles, you have expense management. And a lot of times I get, oh, well, those expenses are handled outside of payroll. Well, you don't. I'm here to say you don't have to manage expenses outside of payroll. You can absolutely set some of this up to track and post to your accounting software inside of the payroll system using expense management. So as an employee, I can see any kind of mileage that I have pending right here, or meals or whatever I'm eligible to expense. You provide those parameters in the system, and then the employees will be able to elect into it. I can upload a copy of my receipt. So if I get gas, I can just take a picture of it on my phone. It's going to read it all and submit it for me, basically. I'm on a computer, so let's just say I want to do details. I can add a picture of my receipt there, type in my details, my date range. I can select my business purpose. Let's say I'm traveling, and then what is the different item? So what's really cool is it takes all of that, and then in the back end, we say, here's the general ledger code that needs to post to. So if you're doing expenses outside of payroll, you don't have to. If you want to pay this once a month, if you want to pay it every payroll, you absolutely can manage that too. But this is how easy it is for the employees. Love this. We used to do expenses through QuickBooks. I'd have to fill out this piece of paper, attach all our receipts. And then when we moved to isolved, it was like, holy smokes, this is so much better. And there's a lot of visibility in that too. For talent management, here I'll be able to see my performance reviews. If I wanted to go through that process, I can see any kind of pending evaluations that I have and completed evaluations. So this is all configured in the back end as well. If you've set up those performance reviews, you can do all of that in there. Now, I don't have this set up for this demo, so it's not going to show it, but you would be able to visually see your pending evaluations and your completed evaluations. This, by clicking onto the Learn and Grow, it does take you to the learning management system, so employees will be taken there as well. And then Employee Marketplace, that's where you can get deals and discounts. isolved's integrated in with a deals and discounts vendor, so you can get different promotions for hotels, Disney World tickets, all the different things, and that just comes automatically. So This isn't necessarily visible to everyone. This is, again, a very modular solution. So it just depends. And you may want to open it all up and set this stuff up, or you might want to do it in chunks. One last piece that I didn't really go into was the benefits management, which is a huge topic of conversation in your industry. So I want to look at this demo account instead. Now, let's get logged in. Okay, I want to do this one. All right, so over on the left, I'm going to click on my benefits. Now I can see that I'm going to go to my benefits here. And here, this shows me what I'm currently elected into from an employee. What deductions are coming out of my check / what benefits am I getting versus what did I waive. I can also come through the open enrollment process here. If I click on benefit enrollment, here it's going to tell me that I've got 19 days left. Now, we would have email automation in this as well. Basically, every few days, because that's the challenge with open enrollment, is harassing employees to get this completed. But we would have that automation to where it's emailing, you'll get lists, you'll be able to be notified, and then as the admin, you'll be able to approve and reject some of these if things are done incompletely. But this is for the employee. They'll be able to do this at home with their significant other. I know my husband just told me the other day, clearly he does not work for higher level, but he said, hey, it's open enrollment. I need you to send I'm going to forward you this email with all of the information on it. And I was just like, ugh, but I'm that person. Clearly I'm in payroll and benefits. That is my specialty. Of course, I'm the one helping him fill that out because that's my job. But not everybody has a significant other that helps them through this process. They get very intimidated by these processes, especially if you're handed a packet of paper and it doesn't make any sense. So here I can see in the messages, you can put the benefit handbook, links to finding physicians and things like that. And I know a lot of people get worried about primary care. Now, there are some enhancements that I don't necessarily have in here yet that are going live this month, and that is the built-in better benefits, where it's integrated in with your carrier. So say you use Blue Cross Blue Shield. It will be able to tell an employee exactly how much of their deductible they used in the prior year. So if you offer 2 health plans, a high deductible health plan, and you offer just a general POP plan, PPO plan, it will be able to basically look at that deductible, what was used. It's going to ask you a questionnaire. Do you have any major procedures planned? Do you have children that are going to get braces this year? What are the different things that you're going to go through, and even your financial wellness? It will ask you some questions there. No one else can see it. The admins can't see it. Managers can't see it. It is only available to your employees from a data security standpoint. You're the only person that can see that. But it's going to give you the suggestions of what you can enroll in because of those carrier feeds, because of what's all in there. And the employees are going to be able to make more well-informed decisions. So again, back to how does AI interact in our world? That's how AI interacts. It's not taking you out of it, but it is to an extent. It's keeping you out of those questions. You're still going to have to answer some, and you might have some people that are old school that won't like to do this. But for the most part, people don't want to be intimidated by these type of employment processes. So having a tool that recommends, because I guarantee you that, right, that's what we all do. We all Google, and it's the first thing that pops up is that AI summary for us. That's basically what this new enhancement is going to be doing. But just looking again in this process, I can see over here on the right, I can see my shopping cart. What are my deductions per pay? As an employer, you can put your expense in there so it shows what you're going to pay for an employee. And then I can see across the month and the year, how much would I pay for these different products? It's pretty self-explanatory when you go through this. You can see the different plans, and then you can also attach the message over here on the right that talks about your different plans, how much the bank pays, how much they don't pay. If I select a high deductible health plan, that allows me to then contribute into an HSA. So it will be intuitive and built into where it knows all of that. And then we can send off those payments electronically as well. So they just next through the process, let's say this person wants to get a PPO Silver. And I want to do family coverage. It's only going to let me get family coverage if I have the dependents in the system that I added as contacts to get that. So I'll select who's going to be enrolled. and then it tells me my per pay amount, and then I hit my select plan. So then once I get through all of this, it's going to send it off, and then I'm going to have that insurance, and there's no missteps, no missed paperwork. It's all going to be very fluid in its process. And then things like I mentioned earlier, education, right? And so some things like dependent care FSA, and even internally with our own team, there's such a need for education on these benefits to increase the use of ancillary products. So many people just go for medical, dental, and vision and leave so much on the table. And something like an FSA dependent care is so beneficial to both the employee and the employer because it is a pre-tax benefit. You're just reimbursing yourself. That's all it is. And so people initially they just see this as another deduction coming out of my check, and then they have to do an annual target, and it's so scary. That's where we add some of this text in here to help understand that. Add some links of a video of someone talking about the benefits of dependent care. Help them understand that it's just reimbursing themselves. It's a pre-tax benefit though. So getting creative. This benefits section in particular is one that I worked very heavily with because I am really the champion for ACA compliance. I don't wear that out proudly, but I'm telling you all that now. So because I get so involved in that piece, I work a lot with customers and their strategy and their open enrollment to streamline. And it all comes back to employee education and communication. So it's a great tool to use. Now, I'm going to also quickly show, just for the sake of time, there's a couple other different products within the system here, if I can find my right browser tab. So let's take a look at this attract and hire here. And I want to make sure that you all can see just a visual of what this looks like. Let me make sure this is turned off here. So scroll through because I didn't have a Dimino account ready to go on this one. So when it comes to attract and hire, your recruitment process, because that is really right, scaling this back. The built-in attract and hire system within our platform is very robust and really does a nice job of helping with some of those AI features and streamlining this process and finding top talent. So what it starts with is basically it provides you with a landing page on your website for applicants to come to. Now, this would all be branded to your colors. It would all, of course, naturally fit right in, but you'd be able to put in as much in there as you want, all those different job postings, all those different, and this is done automatically. There's an API that sends this from the ATS system. So scrolling through here, now you have a dashboard where you'll be able to see the overall performance of things, the conversion of candidates that are coming through. I don't do a lot of our recruiting, so I'm not as versed on this, but I have an internal colleague, her name is Summer, that would be more than happy to talk with you on the attract and hire system and how well that works. I know that it is integrated with over 400 job boards, and so it will post those job positions not only just to your website, but also to all of those job boards. So if you're already doing that, this is going to automatically do it, and it's going to give you a very streamlined place to be able to go through, click and see who's qualified, who's not qualified, and all of that good stuff. There's also some AI tools within this that's going to help you make job title or job descriptions. I know a lot of people just really struggle with job descriptions and being competitive in that space. Banks don't just have a hard time with competition in terms of getting customers. They have a hard time getting talent because the position's nearly the same across every organization that you can go to. So that's a lot what goes into this, and finding those individuals that you can trust, that you can depend on, and you want to get those long-term employees. I know a lot of you are lucky enough to have long-term employees work for you. And that, when it comes to those individuals retiring and finding new candidates, it's not as easy as it used to be. So here's just a quick look at some of the options and ways you can maneuver through this. You can have other individuals getting involved. You can schedule your interviews through here. You can say not selected, and why it's important to use an electronic system for hiring. 1 year, that's how long you have to keep every single application. So if you have anybody that applies and they're coming in and they're giving application, or if you're doing old school things, back to compliance, you have to keep those for 1 year. By using a built-in system, once you decide to hire someone, you can basically say hire and onboard. It's then going to onboard them into the isolved system and save that application electronically into their profile. So Really nice stuff here. It's a great product. That's just a quick snapshot on it. And then here on leave management, I mentioned that there is another dashboard, and this is the dashboard that I mentioned there. We're just going to skim through this. Now they can do this from a mobile device. They can do this from a phone. They can request a new leave or request a new leave accommodation. So you are going to stay entirely compliant there when it comes to some of that FMLA management. And of course, it's important to have that done via phone. So if an employee goes to request a new leave, they can come in here and of course enter the information, the reason for the case, what is requiring them to go out on FMLA, and they can put all of that information in, putting it in the absence details, hopping around a little bit here. And then you can come in here and you can see your cases, you can see the schedule and manage this all very seamlessly. So the reason why this is important, there is a long list right here of compliance regulations. And if you don't see your state on here, maybe you're doing okay, but if your state is on here and you're not really paying attention to FMLA, it's time to start taking a look at automating that process and make sure you're staying in compliance as regulated based off of these different acts. Last but not least, compensation management. So this one is really pretty cool because used to employees or employers and admins would have to go in employee by employee into their profile to make increases to pay, to add bonuses, to schedule bonuses, and even to review eligibility for that, right? When it comes to our employees' labor market, pay matters, and whether or not a short-term compensation is the right idea or a long-term compensation, being able to evaluate the statistics of, do they have disciplinary actions? How are their performance reviews? How long have they been here? When was the last time they got pay increases? So here's a look at the compensation tools within the system that we have. So you can, in relation to bonuses or just pay increases, let's say we're looking at the annual increases for individuals. So here you get your dashboard on who is eligible based off of hire dates. And then it even does such a good job to recommend the annual increase. It looks at those performance reviews and it will tell you, here's really where you need to be at. You can also have some workflows built in where your manager and supervisor is reviewing the eligibility first, and then you as the HR person, you're going to be the one to go in and actually administer that and put that on. Now, this is one big dashboard, so you don't have to go employee by employee, and maybe everybody gets a 5% raise, right? If they've been here over X amount of time. Maybe that's your policy, and that is perfectly fine. You can come right in here and you can institute that 5% raise across the board, but using those AI tools, it's going to suggest to you who should get that. So very nice little screenshot there. Last thing, I promise, and I'm just going over these things that are hot ticket items with our partners for you and how you need to be using the system. So hopefully by now you're thinking about, I don't need to have such broken processes. I don't need to track PTO manually. I don't need to have 5 separate softwares. There is a way to do it all in one. And I'm just skimming the surface on what you can do. I'm hitting the highlighted big target items. So let's see, sorry, we're gonna come in here and I want to take a look at this demo account instead. So I mentioned fraud leave management and that some of those requirements for taking time off. I've had a couple different ways that I've supported customers in streamlining these efforts. I mentioned Miss Fields already, but let's talk about certifications. So what I like to do for this specifically is to add certifications. So there are a slew of different HR related items that I didn't even go over today, like company assets. Do they have door codes? Do they have equipment? What do they have? So when they terminate, you can quickly run a report and see what assets they have, as well as different training and development. You adding the training in there, if it's integrated in, then you'll be able to see what training's been completed, which helps with those compensation management. But certifications is where I'm leaning into with this. So let's say that you want to track this electronically, which I recommend, and you need to come and see if the fraud leave management certification has been completed. So what this will do is it will basically expire when you have it set to expire. It may be on calendar year, it may be on, and anniversary of this leave being. It's got to be within a 1-year time span. Every client is unique in what they're asking of their individuals, of their tellers. But you can come in here and set the effective date and the expiration date. So when that leave management, those mandatory 5 consecutive days off, is about to expire and it needs to be completed, it sends an email, a message to the manager and supervisor saying, hey, this needs to be completed, right? And even to the employee, you need to take your consecutive 5 days off. Please schedule it within the next X amount of days. So I do have some partners that like to use the certification space here. And then I also have some that just simply like to do it as a miscellaneous field. And so I'm going to search my menu here for my miscellaneous fields, and I will show you what that looks like. Maybe if it's thinking about it here. There we go. Of course, I click off and then it loads. All right, so here I have a couple different things pulled in as an option to collect. So t-shirt size, favorite desserts, it's just examples. Policy data, if there's anything that you want to check a box for someone, you can absolutely have this as a box checked. But HR fraud leave management data, so I have a couple that will come in here and they'll actually put the date that the 5 consecutive days was taken for an individual, and then they can run a report off of this and see who has stagnant dates, who's stale dated and needs to take their time. So I can simply come in here and say September 1st that was completed and run reports off of this. So pretty cool stuff. Those little things that matter for your industry, absolutely, we can usually accommodate that. And we love nothing more, especially for me, I say we, but I can tell you I love nothing more to consult in some of these challenges that face your specific industry. Please lean into that. I'm more than happy to just go through the things and brainstorm. I really like to get creative with the way we can use these HR and people management platforms. So I've gone through quite a bit today, and I feel like I've gone through most things. I skipped around a little bit. If you are wondering how you can go paperless, you can absolutely do that. If you've got old files, remember you have to keep your I-9s, your W-4s, all that stuff for 3 years. So get rid of it. Get this stuff scanned in. See what you can do to become paperless so this information can be accessed anywhere. This is really the filing cabinet within isolved. So underneath employee documents, personnel, payroll. So if I had an updated W-4, things like that, that would live there. I-9, if this employee was onboarded electronically, you can even attach the I-9 in here if you have an old one that you completed yourself. Confidential PHI, you can't put those benefit summaries within that employee's paper file. You've got to keep that stuff separate. This filing cabinet will do that automatically with some of that automation. Employee uploads, signed acknowledgements, all of that good stuff also lives right in here. So that is just an in-depth look at what solution we offer and how some of the things we've strategized with people in the industry over the years. And I think there's just a number of things that you can continue to do and look at and improve. Several other products I didn't really dive into in depth, like the learning management and some of that stuff. And I'm happy to do so with you personally if you'd like to, or you can tune into one of our product webinars that we have on recording. You just let us know. So thank you, Tricia. Thank you so much. If you have questions, be sure you can reach out to your account manager. You'll have my contact information. I'm happy to get on a call and connect with you personally and get to know your organization in particular. If you have questions, just drop it in the chat. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a fabulous rest of your week. And thank you for spending an hour of your time with me. I appreciate it.